The morning after their wedding, Dolly Parton got up early and left for a radio appearance. The honeymoon could wait, she had commitments. And Carl Dean, the man she had just married, watched her go without a single complaint. He would spend the next 60 years doing exactly that, watching her light up every stage in the world, from a comfortable, deliberate distance, refusing every camera, every interview, every invitation, and loving her completely the entire time. 2 days after her husband died, Dolly Parton stood in Dollywood and smiled for photographs. There was a little girl at the park that day, completely overwhelmed to be near her idol, and Dolly gave her everything: the warmth, the laughter. The full Dolly Parton experience, every watt of it, turned up to match the child's excitement. Then she walked to her van and wept alone for a long time. Nobody in the park saw that part. They weren't supposed to. That's not how Dolly works, and it's not how Carl would have wanted it either. He had spent 60 years making sure the private life stayed private, even when the whole world was watching, and she was going to honor that, starting with the very first day. 2 months later, she sat down for a live interview and said something quietly that made the entire room go still. "We were together 60 years. I have loved him since I was 18 years old. I will do fine, but I will always miss him, and I will always love him." She said it plainly, without performance. The way you say something that is simply, permanently true. The man the world never once saw had become, in death, the most discussed invisible person in America. And the story of how he got there, how a woman who spent 60 years in the most blinding spotlight in country music managed to keep the person she loved most completely, stubbornly, successfully hidden, is one of the most remarkable love stories I have ever come across. It starts at a laundromat, and it ends at a river, and in between, there is everything. It was the summer of 1964. Dolly Parton had graduated high school in Sevierville, Tennessee, the night before. The morning after graduation, she boarded a bus to Nashville with one suitcase, a dream the size of the Smoky Mountains, and a bag of dirty clothes. She found a laundromat called the Washy. She put her clothes in the machine, walked outside to get her first real look at her new city, and a young man in a white Chevrolet slowed down. He was 21 years old. Born and raised in Nashville, running his own asphalt paving business. He had no particular reason to be at that laundromat on that afternoon. But he stopped. He leaned out the window and said, "Well, you are going to get sunburned out there." She looked at him and said, "Well, what is it to you?" He laughed. And something locked into place for him right then. Something he later described with a simplicity that tells you everything about who Carl Dean was. He said, "I'm going to marry that girl." Then, after a brief pause, he added that he also thought the Lord had done a very fine job. She refused to go with him that day. She had been raised to be careful with strangers. He came back to the house the next day, and she made him sit on the porch all week because she wouldn't let him inside. Eventually, she gave him an afternoon, and the first thing he did was drive her straight to his parents' house and introduce her. He had already made his decision. He just wanted to make sure she understood it. Then the army interrupted everything. Carl enlisted and had to leave. They stayed connected through letters and phone calls. The slow, patient kind of connection that two people maintain when they've already made a private agreement about each other that hasn't been spoken out loud yet. When his service ended, they got engaged immediately. Then the record label stepped in. The label had been investing heavily in Dolly. They had an image in mind, a plan being built carefully, and a husband would complicate it. They asked her to wait. His mother had already sent out the wedding invitations. When Dolly had to cancel that wedding, it broke people. Not just her, not just Carl, his mother. The people who had already started looking forward to a day that was now being postponed for the benefit of a music industry she hadn't fully entered yet. So they found another way. On May 30, 1966, quietly, with almost no announcement, they drove 150 miles from Nashville to Ringgold Baptist Church in Georgia. The guest list was 5 people. Her mother, the pastor's wife, Carl and Dolly. No bridesmaids, no reception, no press release, no photographs that the public would ever see. The morning after their wedding, Dolly was up early for a radio appearance. Carl watched her go. He would spend the next 58 years doing that. Watching her go, watching her return, watching her be Dolly Parton for the whole world. And quietly, completely, happily remaining the one person on earth who got to see who she was when the lights went off. But he had to figure out first what that life was actually going to cost him. Early in the marriage, Dolly begged Carl to come to an industry event, a BMI Song of the Year ceremony. He agreed. He rented a tuxedo. He sat through the whole thing. When they walked to the parking lot afterward, Carl pulled off his bow tie before they had even reached the car. He looked at her and said, plainly and without anger, "Do not ever ask me to come to another one of these things, because I am not going." He never did, not once. For 58 more years. He wasn't jealous. He wasn't threatened. He hadn't found the evening offensive or unpleasant in any notable way. He had simply done the arithmetic in real time and arrived at a conclusion that most people in his position would never have had the self-awareness to reach. He did not belong in that world. Not because he wasn't good enough for it, but because it wasn't good enough for him. Once people start photographing you, he reasoned, you lose the ordinary life. And the ordinary life was the only life Carl Dean wanted. Fishing, his asphalt business, early mornings, the river. Daffodils in spring, paper plates because neither of them wanted to wash dishes. He engineered his own invisibility with an almost comic level of dedication. When Dollywood opened in 1986 and the marketing team asked for promotional photographs, Carl agreed to cooperate on one condition. He would only participate wearing a bag over his head. The team assumed he was joking. He was not joking. When reporters staked out the house, Carl would open the front door, look them directly in the eye, and inform them, sincerely, without a flicker of irony, that he was not the husband. He was the gardener. Reba McEntire, one of country music's biggest names and one of Dolly's closest friends, revealed in 2024 that she had never once met Carl Dean in her entire life. She has never invited me over, McEntire told Andy Cohen. If Reba McEntire had never been introduced to him, essentially nobody in the industry had. And then there is the detail that somehow makes him more real than anything else. He did not particularly enjoy Dolly Parton's music. She explained it on Good Morning Britain with a laugh. He preferred Led Zeppelin and bluegrass. The man married to one of the most iconic voices in American music history turned off the radio and put on Led Zeppelin instead. He was not her fan. He was her husband. And he understood, with absolute clarity, that those were different things, and that confusing them was the fastest way to ruin both. In January 2025, weeks before he died, she told a magazine, "Carl is my best and lasting. He was the one that lasted for 60 years. She said it in the present tense. He was still there then. In those last weeks, she held his hand. She told him it was okay to go. She told him she loved him. She told him she would find him again when it was her time. On March 3, 2025, Dolly posted that he was gone. The world stopped for a moment, and somewhere on a property in Tennessee, there is an empty camper parked near a river. 2 fishing rods. Paper plates still in the cabinet because neither of them wanted to wash dishes. And a woman who made a promise at a small Baptist church in Georgia to a man no one was ever allowed to see, and kept it for 60 years. Here is what I keep thinking about. Carl Dean chose invisibility deliberately, completely, and without regret. He understood something that most people who end up adjacent to fame never figure out. That being seen is not the same as being known. That the ordinary life, the river, the daffodils, the early mornings, the paper plates, was not a consolation prize for the life he didn't get to have. It was the life he chose, on purpose.
Every day.
For 60 years. And Dolly Parton, the woman who could light up any room on earth, who built a career on being seen, spent 60 years being known, completely and privately, by one person who chose her before she had sold a single record, before there was anything to gain from the choice, at a laundromat in the Nashville summer heat. She said in 2022, "I would have liked him even if he was not my husband. We just genuinely like each other." I think that is the whole story, really. Everything else, the awards, the albums, the Jolenes, and the scandals, and the daffodil poems, and the difficult years, and the child who never came, all of it exists inside that one sentence. They genuinely liked each other. And when you find that, the person you would choose even if you didn't have to, you hold on to it. You go home to it every night. You protect it from every camera and every interview and every red carpet in the world. You keep your promise. And Dolly Parton always keeps her promises. If this story got to you, share it with someone you genuinely like, and we'll see you in the next one.